when I was a sophomore in high school, I kind of like dipped a toe outside of the closet, if you will. And I felt so guilty that I was having these thoughts about other guys. And I just felt shame for being attracted to other guys because I grew up in a religion that, like a lot of religions, unfortunately, historically, don't condone homosexuality and teach against it. So it was very confusing for me to have these thoughts, because for so long I thought this religion that I grew up in was the only truth, the only way to live. And so as a child I had a very black and white perspective of reality and what was right and what was wrong. It was like, follow this list, do this, and then you're gonna make it to the highest level of heaven. One of the things that you had to do to get to the highest level of heaven in this religion was get married. And if you're a man, you're expected to marry a woman, and if you're a woman, you're expected to marry a man. Then when I started realizing I could possibly be this thing, I could be gay, that was, labeled as wrong for me, it was very scary. And so for me to kind of release a little bit of what I was carrying, I realized I kind of had to open up a little bit. And I wasn't at the place where I was fully confident in my sexuality to say I was gay, regardless of your sexual orientation. Like, getting to the place to live in your truth is a journey. The communities we're raised in, they have these expectations for us. They expect us typically to fit this sort of narrative, and to go against that can be scary, because our minds are like, or at least my mind, I'll speak for myself, my mind was like, okay, if I don't fit into this narrative that's laid out for me, am I still going to be loved? Am I still going to be valued? Because for so long as a child, I feel like I put so much of my value on if I was righteous, if I was choosing the right, that's when I had value, that's when I was worthy of something. If I was doing X, Y, and Z, even if it didn't necessarily resonate with me, I still did it because I was told to, and I wanted, again, to please God and make it to the highest kingdom of heaven. I didn't want to go astray, and I felt like I was by having these thoughts about other guys and being attracted to them, even though I didn't ask for it. It happened. So when I was a sophomore, I told a couple people close to me, including a couple of family members and I think one friend, that I was questioning my sexuality. And one of the things I was told was that I could pray, and God would take away these thoughts. God would take away the attraction they had to other guys. And because so much of my identity at this time was based around this religion, and I wanted to make my family proud, I did pray a lot. To the point where there would be times I was pulling out my hair praying, asking God to take away these thoughts I had about other guys. And I got so mad at myself that these thoughts weren't going away. I thought there was something defective with me, that I wasn't praying hard enough, or I wasn't praying sincere enough. And that's when I really started to hate myself for not being able to get rid of the thoughts. It eventually got to the point where, when I was a senior in high school, I realized it was either keep trying to fit into this box that people expected me to fit into, or I could start figuring out what it was to live my truth and to live, So I chose to live, and I was finally like, there's no questioning, I'm gay. And in that moment, I did feel free. I felt this sense of freedom and liberation I hadn't felt in a really long time. I knew if I stayed in this religion, they will at that point, and still now, who knows, later down the road, but they don't support, two men getting married or two women getting married. And I knew in my heart I wanted a partner. I wanted a loving relationship, and I knew to live that truth, I would never get the support from that religion. So I walked away, and a couple years after I walked away, I started going to this really small church where pretty much all the members of the church were part of the LGBTQ plus community. And even being surrounded by other queer folks, I still felt very uncomfortable talking about God. And I realized I was really only going to this new church that I found because I felt like I was expected to find another church to go to now that I wasn't going to the church I was raised in. So then after that, I kind of like took 7 years to be like, I don't know what I believed in, because trying to figure out what I believed in, it was really scary, because I felt like if God was real, then I was a huge disappointment to God, and I hadn't yet been able to untangle everything I had learned about God from this religion. At the time, it was just easier to say I don't know what I believe in, instead of facing the trauma and the pain and the anxiety and the fear and the feelings that I was less than, and the guilt and the shame as well. I do believe there's divine timing in everything, and eventually I did get to that place where I was able to face that, and that was very end of 2019, I believe November. I was experiencing anxiety attacks again due to this new job I got, and this job just really like put in my face that there was a lot I still had to heal from, and so I set the intention to heal. And one of the books I read during this time was The Velvet Rage, and reading The Velvet Rage just really opened me up. I just realized there was still self-hatred inside of me, which was kind of a lot for me to sit with at first. And then I had this beautiful opportunity to parent my inner child that, 14-year-old boy who was questioning his sexuality, who felt like he was so lost and so broken. I realized that 14-year-old boy inside me was so waiting for permission to be allowed to be himself. Because for so long I had waited for someone close to me to tell me that it was okay that I was gay, and that I didn't need to feel ashamed. I never got that, though, from the person I wanted that from. And at the same time, when I was in my mid-20s, I was able to give that to myself. I was finally able to give myself something I'd been longing for a really long time. Permission to be my authentic self, and to be proud and not feel ashamed for it. And even though I would have loved to have gotten it from the person I wanted it from, I know it was so much more powerful coming from myself. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many people tell me I'm worthy or that I don't need to feel shame. If I don't believe that in my heart, I'm not going to be able to live in that truth. And in that moment, I was able to finally believe that. I was able to finally let go of any residue of shame and guilt I had for being gay. I was able to just face it and let it go and let it dissolve away from my being, from my essence. I was no longer carrying that anymore. I was able to then show up feeling a little bit more free, a little bit lighter, So I was able just to wash away that shame and that guilt. And then around that same time, I started also reading books that were a little bit more spiritual, which isn't something I had done prior. I started reading The Secret and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And in those books, what really resonated with me is this creator, this life force, this universal life force, is I think how it's sometimes described in Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and how the universe, or this, life force, this infinite awareness, wants what's best for us and wants to support us. I feel like for so long, I felt like I wasn't worthy of having support from, a higher power or, a creator. I didn't believe I was worthy of that. And so by being able to face what was left of my internalized homophobia and give myself permission to be myself, I was able to finally get to this place where I felt worthy and I felt lovable, and I started learning what it was like to give myself unconditional self-love, you know, because for so long I didn't love myself unconditionally. There's always going to be areas in my life where I want to improve, I want to expand, and I want to level up, and at the same time I'm still working towards growth and, you know, expanding and blossoming brighter. I still get to give myself love, and I still get to grant myself patience and self-compassion, and I'm still worthy of love, like right now. Like, I don't have to go out to prove I'm worthy of love. Like, now I believe I'm worthy of love right now. I'm worthy of a relationship with my Creator right now as I am. I don't need to prove myself. And by learning to love myself unconditionally and by believing I'm worthy, that's when I was able to start like reclaiming my spirituality and realize that I'm not like on this planet for anyone else's approval. Like, the only approval I look for now is my own approval. Like, am I happy with the choices I'm making? Do the choices I'm making resonate with me? Do they light me up? Do they make me excited? Do they make me feel infinite and alive? And not to say that like there's not certain situations where I'm not interested in what other people think. What I'm speaking on is like realizing the choices I make are now coming from the place of like what's gonna better serve me, not what are people expecting of me to do. It's like what's gonna better serve my soul and my journey, my truth, my overall well-being. And by getting into that mindset, into that flow, that's when, you know, I was able to be like, oh, like I can be gay and I can be spiritual. I can, you know, go on this journey and I don't need anyone's permission to do it, you know. And going back again to when I was able to go within and speak to my inner child to give myself permission to be gay. Like, it just also like opened the door for me to start doing things without looking for anyone else's permission, because I gave myself permission to do it. I gave myself permission to start having a relationship with the universe and my Creator. You know, I'm now at a spot in my life where I can use the word God and I don't feel all this anxiety and shame. And by being able to reclaim my spirituality, I've been able to invite like magic into my life. Like, things have now just like fallen into my lap. Here's a little recap for how I faced my internalized homophobia and reclaimed my spirituality. 1, I became aware that internalized homophobia still existed within me. 2, I faced the internalized homophobia. 3, I rewired my thoughts and my beliefs and started believing I was worthy. For so long, I focused on the narrative that being gay was wrong, that I lost sight of my own divinity, my own worthiness. Then I also had to start believing I was worthy again. I was worthy of going on a spiritual journey and on a spiritual path, and I was worthy of having a relationship with my Creator. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video and hear part of my story. I hope this video was able to add to the positivity and all the healing energies that are already out in the universe. Until next time, much love.